New bridge across the Mekong, Laos side. Looks like they're making a couple of steel boats like we're on right now, or iron boats. There, another one. These sandbanks are created by the wet season rains, which simultaneously cause the water coming off the mountain to rip through some of those sandbanks. Albino water buffalo? There's a ferry that takes vehicles across, but a brand new bridge in the process. Shouldn't be too long. These are called freedom bridges between Laos and Thailand.
Per condividere qualcosa che potrebbe far crescere anche il piano. Sì. Ah, se fossi con Andrea questa situazione sarebbe bellissima, e ti segni tutte le cose, poi arrivi lì, ti scontri con la realtà e ti viene. Le volevo proprio.
You just make out an elephant moving along in the grass. Actually, it's facing us right now.
We are just kidding.
This is a family that lives on the boat. That's their home. How this boat is used, I don't know. Just leaving the midpoint town, and this is a big tourist complex. This is the midpoint on our 2-day slow boat trip up the Mekong. Most of the village is way up inside of there along a sinuous curving road, where we paid probably $2.75 to each to share a 3-bedroom room. The Laos side, and perhaps in 5 or 10 years from now, that will be filled all the way up through there. Interesting how much along this river this little town spreads out. You don't see all that many people, but this may represent a broader part of the economy here. You can see how they use these bamboo poles that are secured into the wall to hold their boats at night. I thought they might be for fishing, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Although it might be that too. Different plateau levels define the different levels of the river, probably during the wet season. But I also think it depends on the configuration of the shoreline and what kind of rocks may be offshore as well as onshore that direct and redirect the water flow. Getting into an area where there's something that looks like mountains or peaks rather than just what we've been seeing, the ridgeline. This is a different little white butterfly. After Myanmar, Luang Prabang in Laos is a very refreshing upgrade. Throughout the city I see these little spots of, looks like just lots that are not being used yet, but very pretty, and you can see a pond in the back of that one. And palm trees in the back. It's actually kind of a pretty little refuge. Here I'm going to buy some chicken this morning, and my little lady right here helped me do that, and even rearranging where the chickens are that are cooking, so they'll be hopefully cooked well. Get my chicken cooked on the barbecue, and then put it in a plastic bag, and off I go for breakfast. Would like to find a bowl of hot noodles with vegetables. Apparently that's the school. Going by, to get to the bridge, I just thought I would video it. I'm not going to go inside. Cross this bridge again that I crossed yesterday. Funky old metal bridge across this relatively smaller river. I think it's the Kham River, K-H-A-M or N, something like that. And it's interesting because it has a pedestrian walkway on either side with boards. We'll go down this left side because I went down the right before. Bridge, conduit for vehicles of course, but also for apparently some kind of infrastructure, water, sewer. And these boards, they look like 2x6s. And a little bit later this morning, after we've been to a temple, we'll walk down and cross that bamboo bridge down there. Crossed it yesterday. It's only available in the dry season because in the wet season, if you can see that cement stairway up to the left, the water goes all the way up into that. The other side, because I think the view is prettier, if I remember correctly. And it seems a little dicey when you hit certain boards and they rattle and so forth. Sometimes there's a mid-point support for whatever reason, I don't know. It's inherently a very pretty country, at least in this part of the country. Rich foliage, jungle, half something else. And in the dry season, all along these benches that the river has created over time is, of course, farming. Guessing that we're zeroing down on what are probably fishing weirs that are used for trapping fish at various levels of the river. Fun to have a kayak. It ruined the ambience, but it'd be a lot of fun just to paddle up and down these rivers for such a country provides niche for all kinds of people and all kinds of economic levels. And imagination. Look how they have planted corn in little holes, if you will, that they've carved out on the slope of this river. But here it looks like there's a family that's set up, at least for the dry season, to live in this pretty little spot. New, probably a combination commercial building with those roll up and roll down doors. But here you see, even here, the human labor. Of course, laying bricks is done humanly everywhere, but mixing cement is not done that way in the United States. And technology seeps in up here wherever it can be economical. This is teak wood or not, but this is all tongue and groove. Whereas Myanmar, everything would have simply been the inexpensive do-it-yourself reed. Kept an old door to be used, and it on the hammer and sickle flag, whether it's part of this country's flag or whether it's just a communist symbol, neighborhood symbol of loyalty to a communist party, if that's one of the parties that's here. Morning, so this street functions as a market, probably all the time. It's interesting again, the competition that's must necessarily exist with all of these shops selling essentially the same thing. So here I'm going to buy some fried banana that's just come out here. It's going to be in a little bag. I'll wait till it cools down and I can eat it. Kapsai. It's probably just fuel for those who need it, don't have access to their own. Probably a new hotel going in. It's not in that great an area, but it's not all that shabby either. And by the time they finish it, it'll be an oasis. And probably the area will improve around it. What we're looking at here is the lottery industry. These 3 tables and several more set up further on. The banana turns that color when it's been fried, and maybe it does. But the pastry is kind of almost crunchy initially, and then chewy, kind of a batter. It's good. And the taste of whatever is in there is quite subtle. Could be pumpkin, could be some kind of squash. Now we're on a bridge farther upriver, looking upriver. There's a nice little garden plot. I'm guessing that this fence is surrounding the compound that we're about to visit. And the entrance. The guest house, there are a lot of them. It's quite a ways from the center though. But more construction going on all around this area. The tourism impact is very evident. It gives a very strong premonition of the future of Myanmar if the government / military do not steal too much. Grounds here nicely kept, very little trash around, which is so novel. Nicely finished off streets, including the gutters. Sounds like it's a strange thing for me to talk about, but not after you've been in Myanmar. Row of buildings approaching the edifice that's important here. Don't know what these buildings are for though. An interesting structure. Notice as I pan down, the 2 towers right and left, drum towers attached to the building. See the drums there. I'm guessing this is Hindu, if only because of these characters, but I could well be wrong. Buddha, of course. Here's someone on the right panel paying homage to an elephant. It's a nicely maintained building. And I'll make the obligatory pan. Coming into view now, the top of that hill is dead center in the tourist area of Luang Prabang. We were up at that tower yesterday, or religious site yesterday. We have no access to this building apparently, but it does appear to be either a temple and or, I don't know if that's Shiva in that tower. But a nice building nevertheless. Wondering if this path doesn't lead downhill. I'm gonna think it does. Here looks like a non-tourist shortcut route down this steep hill to avoid going the long way around that I came up. First plateau of my shortcut, which I hope is a shortcut because I don't want to climb up that steep hill I'm coming down. The alternative to a long slog up that hill and then around and back was a quick trip down right over the edge of that cliff. First towards the first bridge and back towards where my hostel is. The advantages of owning a home, I would suspect, alongside the river at this point is that you've got your beautiful built-in terraced garden. It probably gets refreshed with nutrients as well as moisture. And is paddling his boat to a new position where he'll throw his net, and hopefully we'll get to see that. doubt he's pulling it up gently. You can actually feel if he's got a fish in there. Yeah, he's got something. The cement operation, making these culverts and pipe. You can see the forms there. You can see a woman doing some of the hard labor as well as a man. That's a bitch of a job. I've done it. And then these, I think, are the forms for making columns. Probably have rebar in them. Small something or other off this street, Main Street I'm on. Sometimes they're very scrappy looking, ugly sometimes. Ironically, in Myanmar, there was one breed, almost a tan color, only pretty good looking, healthy and pretty good looking, with a very small percentage of the ugly dogs. Some rather ordinary stupas are some very elegant and beautiful nagas. Three-headed ones. Sabadi, little drum tower. This is what creates the interest for me in the endless parade of Chinese and Thai temples. They're inherently more interesting than most of the temples I saw, even in Myanmar, just because of the roof design, the pillars, the detail. We'll look at these paintings on the wall. Nicely done, actually. Muck and his family on their elephant. Probably like a Hummer and artist. You just figure at peace amongst the beasts. Some smaller stupas that are kind of nice and maintained, although it looks like it's an old maintenance, but maintained nevertheless, and some more in the background. I wonder if it's a continuing reverence and maintenance by the family of the person who first installed it. So at the end of the street, as we pass a somewhat modest little temple complex and a refuse heap, there's this little store inundated with chickens. We continue down this dirt road and a place where tourists might focus. Our shops in here. Probably a pretty nice little restaurant advertised it has a view, but I think there's only a couple of tables that can actually see through the trees. Nice tourist steps. My guess is that there are tour groups that stop on the other side of the river. And as part of their tour, they walk down, walk across the bridge, go out and have lunch, come back, walk across the bridge, get back in the bus, keep on driving. A bit of how this thing's put together. I think that's rubber, probably from a tire. People think bamboo bridge is going to be pretty rickety, but the bamboo is what they use to make that scaffolding that they'll go up several stories, even in large cities. Interesting, a tripod with a lot of stones on it to hold it down against the downward flow of the river, and then tied into the bridge to keep it from tending to topple over downstream. Now that bridge that you see up there in the center is the bridge we crossed earlier this morning. Along this Mekong River, they created this park-like area. Of course, continuing to use the nice brick sidewalks with some little lines that take you down to the water's edge. Presumably you'd come here by boat. Park idea for all these restaurants and maybe guest houses that are around, or cooking school. Restaurants able to take advantage of it. And Tony for me. There's an old aura about it, patina, I would say. We'll go across and take a little bit better look at it. This kind of stumpy-nosed, snaky nagas, like the treatment of the roofs by the Chinese and the Thai, and apparently whatever this religion is. Just looking closely at the detail, wondering if this is painted on or if it's a stencil. Been retouched, I think.
It's in the north. The kingdom of Vientiane is in the center. The kingdom of Jampasam is in the...
There were probably a couple of ceremonial canoes, for lack of a better term. Yeah, they hold quite a few people, and it does look like a canoe. So we'll go up and take a look at this detail and a small amount of color. Huh. Down the street a little ways, this what once was a very dramatic stupa. It's still pretty interesting. This was that. The richness of the foliage and the beautiful intricate coloration and reasonably restored conditions make these interesting. And a little bit farther. Simple in the inside. This there is a school clock. Here's some kind of rice cake drying in the sun. It looks like it's the kind of thing that will have a filling put in it. Here we're at the intersection of that small river and the Mekong River, and another pretty bridge, which is always worth walking across. At the very end of this very nicely manicured park-like, the end of this peninsula. Here we'll pay our 50 cents and walk across the bridge, and of course go up to that little templeette, and then go down to the point and pan the river cracks in this mud. The bridge is a little bit sinuous as we pan down at the tourists coming across. Little temple. Yet this is a place where you can take boats out on cruises of some sort, perhaps like that boat there. Looking upriver on the Mekong. There, the pretty end of the peninsula. Interesting lotus on a pedestal. Been drop dead gorgeous when it sparkled like those brilliant new green glass pieces. It's a pretty effect, isn't it?
20 บาท
Collection of what looks like some very old artifacts, old stupas. If the stupa once sat outside, I doubt it, because I think maybe it's made of wood. Has its own little stairway made of nagas. This has all the aura of old and revered, regardless of what the religion might be. And slowly pan this panel. It's backed by the altar of the Buddha. You'd think. Tall, slim. Reminds me of something from the Greek Museum. Resting a long naga beam. Came from somewhere. That long would seem to be a boat. Who knows, but still revered to some degree. They're candles that are burned on special occasions. Interesting to, again, imagine the effort that went into this a long time ago. To build, and more importantly, I think, to carve out this piece. This one looks like more like a bell than a gong. This a gong. That a bell. And a big gong. This person and bird motif we've seen before. Looks like a big naga boat. Notice this very slim, very Greek profile. The only difference, well, one of the differences between this and some of the statues in the Greek Museum is that the hands are flared out on purpose, and the arms also. Buddha's elongated ears are a dead giveaway here. A great number of really old artifacts. Cabinets like this, probably pieces from parts that had long ago disintegrated, bigger parts. These are interesting since they hold little removable, apparently, pieces of Buddha icon. They answer a question. This may be a stencil some of this gold painted work we see. The tiny but very elaborate, it seems like. Either, I guess, just a little temple type thing. Guess who? Here, a collection of quite elaborate little temples or shrines, whatever you call them. And those dramatic green, whatever they are, I'd have to go back and read the Chinese literature to remember what the purpose of that is. I think it's to deflect the gods of fire, like lightning and stuff like that. As a reclining Buddha, and again with that very sinuous look. It reminds me of the difference between Michelangelo's David, and I can't remember, Donatello? David. That are almost effeminate in its curves. This is novel to see the exterior in little pictures of colored glass. Very interesting technique. Some pretty color with that almost mint green gold. And this with brown on white, or is it white on brown? These flowers are not only pretty, they're interesting. This one almost like a little cup, but they are on what look to be the same cactus, almost like an ocotillo, but with very sharp spines and quite long, almost a half an inch long. But very pretty colors. This one unique because it's such a mix within each petal, if you will. And it almost looks like the flower is two half circles that are just connected at the center. Color of this, and I don't know if it's associated with this plant here or not. It looks like it is. These are probably domestic plants rather than wild, but pretty nevertheless. Wandering a little bit into back streets here. It's a toss-up as to whether this is a back street or just the lower end of the tourist complex. Actually, I think it's the support end of the tourist complex that's all along the Mekong River, and this is just a eighth of a block in from that. Little factory taking banana leaves and local items, like that's on that tray right there, putting them into a little package, and then they wrap that like a vase in a chunk of the banana leaf, and that becomes this little tourist gewgaw here. I guess that's what it is. Maybe it's for restaurants or something. And maybe those are chopsticks, I don't know. A little flour just to add a little spicy color. And those ladies back there are playing a form of checkers, I think. These are quaint little streets off of the main street that parallels the Mekong, where all the expensive hostels and hotels are, and most of the Europeans hang out. Guest houses, etc., etc. Down to the Mekong, you see guest house, guest house, guest house on the left, guest house here. They're everywhere. Since we're going by, may as well go look. One of the major tourist ones, but very pretty and well maintained anyway. Here are 5-headed nagas. Here are 5-headed nagas. And very pretty nagas. I remember when I was in Thailand, after looking at Nagas and temples ad nauseum, it was the Nagas they looked towards, because that's where you could see variety. Otherwise, the temple's all blurred into ubiquity. It's Children's Cultural Center, a white elephant, all but abandoned, with his foot on the ball. That almost looks whimsical as well as religious.